for Colotraq. And I'm here today to talk about cybersecurity risk assessments and planning. And I'm here because I typically get the most out of an event like this where I'm speaking and presenting what we're working on right now, and I hear back from you all about what's going on with you or questions that you have about the approach that we're taking. So I appreciate any questions or comments along the way. Colotraq has been around for 18 years, and Colotraq is a business that I know as I was a CIO of a couple of companies along the way in my career. I didn't know that this industry that Colotraq existed. Colotraq is a master agent in the data center infrastructure space, and now the cloud services space as well. In that space, there are some big players, people that have been around for 18 years like Colotraq, so we're a small group of master agents. And we provide a kind of unique service that's typically under the covers, and I think part of my job will be to get it out from under the covers so that more people know about this as a service, to get the best fit quotes and designs for cybersecurity, for infrastructure, and for cloud services for your businesses. In our context, cybersecurity is actually a new thing for us. It's a value-added service. So if you can imagine, we have agents, like any brokerage would. We have agents out there looking for business. That business is data center or cloud services business. And we have 425 service providers of all kinds that we match to the needs of that agent and their client. Cybersecurity in this context, we provide as a service, as a virtual CISO service, in order to open the conversation about what's going on inside the infrastructure of the client company. We do that because we see this mad rush to cloud. We see that mad rush to cloud sometimes without a lot of framework around it, without a lot of construct around it. We heard it's a good thing, it's cheaper, I can get it with my credit card, I can have something up and running. It is quite remarkable, having grown up in IT, that I can now get online and start my website, I can open up an SAP instance, I can connect my whole company together, I can have my email service running, I can have everything that I need, and that's great. In some of our public cloud services, we have the shared responsibility model, which means somewhere in there, there's a responsibility line that's getting drawn about who's supposed to take care of things like aspects of cybersecurity. That line remains fuzzy, I believe, and if people are asking the question about where those lines are when they're getting their original designs for their data center and cloud services, I think they stand a better chance of success, and that's what Colotraq is in the business of facilitating. We have more than just our cybersecurity practice as the value-added service that we bring. Of course, data centers and cloud services are all about the data, as far as I'm concerned. It's all about how you're running your business and what you know about your business and your competition and your marketplace. That data needs extra services for how the data is getting moved from one place to another, especially if you're doing things, projects like moving to the cloud. And we provide services around all of that. I put this slide in here. I have a couple of slides like this where it could be very likely that lots of people presenting today are presenting the same kinds of slides. I would like to, if I had $1,000 for every time somebody said the word Equifax today, I think I'd be a very wealthy person. But there's a fear out there, and rightly so. I watched a recent debate from the most senior people in Washington, D.C., from various aspects of government, debating about what we should be doing as a collective in our country to protect ourselves. All of that would, of course, filter down to business. What should business be doing to protect itself? There was an aspect of the argument that said we need to be on the attack. We need to be aggressive about our cybersecurity. And there's another that said, don't even think about being offensive until you know that your defenses work. There are lots of breaches. Those breaches are increasing, and it's a scary world out there that we're trying to address. And we're trying to address that through this idea of planning. You'll see some common themes running through this presentation, including this idea of how you put your plans in place. I'll explain how we do our planning as a service. I'm not here to sell that. I'm just here to say, in the world of people moving their data center and cloud services around, we have an approach to it that we're hearing is interesting and unique. So I wanted to share it with everybody and, of course, hear back from you about whether you've tried it and it worked or you haven't tried it yet, and see where we're maturing this industry. No small surprise here that the risk around cybersecurity is increasing. The risk and frankly the attacks. The complexity of our IT infrastructure, the complexity of our business infrastructure is changing rapidly. And of course, cybersecurity is meant to address wherever it's going, and we're not moving fast enough to keep up with that. And I'll give you a data center example for that I've been using as I've talked to folks. In the data center world, one of the things that's changing is people are moving to the cloud. But there's also this new thing that's happening. With the world of smart X, smart cities and smart cars and smart everything else, and the idea of the Internet of Everything, the data center itself is now being made small, it's being made physical again, and it's being put in really strange places all around the world so that edge computing is happening wherever you're driving your car or whatever you're doing inside your smart city, or if your watch needs to talk to somebody, or if you burst into flames and the fire department needs to be called, those IoT sorts of activities need to be addressed with connectivity and data center services. This probably is not a surprise to most of you in the room as well. I'd be interested to hear if anybody does take issue with this, but we do our best inside IT to address the issues of cybersecurity, and the belief that we've got it handled seems to be outpacing the reality of the situation. I do think some of the recent activity that we've seen in the press is proof of that. So we need to try to address this as an issue. One of those common themes you'll see in this presentation is that we just don't have enough skilled resources in the workforce to be able to handle all that we need. That is true because of the scale and complexity of what we're working on. And this is, I think, an example of why this sequence of metrics are what they are. So cybersecurity planning. Has anybody here ever given a presentation where the presenter right before them said something that blew up their entire presentation? In the last presentation, the presenter said, have you ever done a GRC implementation? It's a nightmare and it'll never be done in 5 years. Well, cybersecurity planning is essentially what those GRC applications do. It is something that can be done, and it is something that needs to be done because we don't have the resources that are necessary to manage cybersecurity as a single IT activity. It needs to be a distributed activity. Those GRC tools actually do help to do distribution of the tasks around controls. It allows you to put the controls in the hands of the right people, and it allows the communication to work in a way that's automated and effective and measurable. Let's pick on Equifax. Why not? So the CEO of Equifax said in an article that came out last week that it was one person's problem inside the IT department that the patch wasn't put in place. I know my immediate response, and I put it on LinkedIn right away, is that's the problem. That thinking that it's one person's problem that the patch didn't get in place is exactly the problem that the CEO had. So, and I believe that lots of other organizations are thinking the same way. It is the old-fashioned thinking that cybersecurity is an IT problem, and cybersecurity planning is here to say that it's really not. Cybersecurity planning is also meant to help with this skills and responsibilities gap. It puts the controls in the hands of the entire business everywhere where it needs to sit. So yeah, the GRC implementations can be difficult. But in the cybersecurity world, we haven't made it difficult enough. We haven't put the controls everywhere they're supposed to be inside enterprises in the experience that I'm currently having in the job that I'm in. And certainly in the experience I had several times as a CIO where I worked for management teams that said, if we can't see we're being hacked, then we're not. That frankly made me mad. So part of the reason my career is where it is today is because I got mad. I said, no, that can't be right. We've got to take responsibility, and we have to know if we're being hacked, and we have to know that we're doing the right things at the best we can to protect our data and protect our client information and protect the proprietary information that runs the business. So part of the planning is also what happens in the world of your incident response capabilities. We do have a capability in our planning platform, our virtual CISO platform, to associate any of the technologies already in a company to the plan, so that a control point that has people assigned to it and has tasks associated with it actually has the technology that's running inside the company to feed it. If something's being attacked, the right people will know about it. And we actually we ensure that it's not just one person at a control point. It's actually a racy organization of the people that need to take action, the people that need to be accountable and responsible for it, as well as the people that need to be informed. And you'll see as we talk through this idea of communication in a plan that this responsibility goes all the way to the C-suite and goes all the way to the board level. Picking on the poor CEO of Equifax, the answer is it shouldn't have been just one person's responsibility. He should have been alerted if there was something that hit a critical mass over a critical point in time over a period of time. As I said, common theme, not enough people in the cybersecurity space. That's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed just by itself. And part of the challenges of this isn't just that we need to get more people CISO certified or CISSP certified. The challenge really is that the responsibility goes well beyond just what the CISO is responsible for. It goes across the whole business. And once you see the tasks and inside controls in the NIST model, for instance, or the ISO model, you get a sense that this isn't an IT thing. And I think once again, the presenter just before me made that exact point. These things really are business issues. They can't be handled only by IT. So this plan that I'm talking about really puts the information in the right hands of the right people, helping with this too few people gap. At the same time, CISSP certified people in the room? So I would be interested to know if anybody agrees or disagrees with this, but having been trained for the CISSP certification, I got through it and thought every IT person needs to know this. This wasn't some magic thing that taught me how to code algorithms that blocked hackers or taught me how to hack or anything else. This was real fundamental IT stuff that we all should know. Don't fear that training, even if you don't care about the certification. It is worthy training for anybody that's in an IT role, and probably beyond that once the responsibilities in a plan are spread across the organization. This is an interesting slide that we talk about inside Colotraq just because there is this big shift to the cloud, and as I mentioned, there are different kinds of roles and responsibilities that get created with cloud services for all kinds of management and monitoring. One of the things that I like to show the clients that we're dealing with who are moving to hybrid cloud or public cloud or private cloud is that although the vendor that they're moving to, in almost every case in our world, in the people that we recommend, will tell you that they're offering cybersecurity services. And they will tell you that they're HIPAA compliant at their data center. And they'll tell you that you're PCI compliant because you're using that data center. That does not mean there aren't controls outside of that data center that are related to those rules and regulations. And so how you see that in your plan, I think, is critical. So one of the reasons we're adding the value-added service to our brokerage is because we need to put that control back in the hands of the ultimate client. Some more quotes just about today's cybersecurity challenges. This just speaks to all of these themes of not enough people, not enough training, not enough communication, not enough planning. Just curious for the folks in the room, are people are people saying, who's in their seat saying, I've got a plan in place, I'm not sure why this guy's so upset about it? You're
Well, one thing I would just add to the lack of people, I say this at every presentation that mentions that. I think one of the underlying things is lack of money to pay such people, right? I mean, ideally there would be a bunch of Porsches in our homes, right?
So the comments here in the room are about the affordability of the right resources and the budget. And so one of the things that I would claim here is if the idea of the cybersecurity plan is executed properly, you're now going to be planning with the rest of the business as they do their planning, and you can elevate the issues around how much it's going to cost to do what you need to do. The cybersecurity plan, by its nature, in our case, delivers a gap analysis that shows you what you have covered with your current cybersecurity capabilities and what you don't have covered and what you have overlapping and who's working on those things, how many bots you have against it. Was anybody else surprised to hear that Equifax had 255 cybersecurity staff? That was reported this week. I was a little surprised to hear there were that many people in the cybersecurity space for that organization. They spent $1 billion and still missed patch management as one of their planning control points. So part of this plan, and it speaks to this notion of the budget. It speaks to the notion of getting enough money to do things. The work that we have to do is increasing. The attacks are increasing. The complexity of those attacks are increasing. The complexity of the infrastructure is increasing, as I mentioned, with the world of smart everything and IoE, IoT. It's making things more complex. Mobile everything. Bring your own device was such a big deal a few years ago. Now it's assumed, I think, in many cases, but it makes the world more complicated, and you need to know what you're going to do about that. So again, having the right controls in place and making sure those controls are monitored and managed, I think, is one way to help this, but also taking that message back to the corporate planning process, taking the cybersecurity planning back to the corporate planning process can help with at least identifying what you're saying yes and no to in terms of funding, in terms of budgeting for what is necessary. So this is speaking exactly to that point about the rate of increase of the time and money and complexity of what we're working on. This is increasing. We need to get this message across to the people planning how business is going to work. Equally, I find this to be a very compelling sort of group of information. As you look at the increase in the sophistication of attacks, the kinds of things that are happening to us, you can see that it's ramping up, and it's ramping up quickly. But if you also overlay that with the kinds of solutions that are being applied to this is another reason why a real cybersecurity plan with automation is helpful to the cause. It's complicated with what you're using to try and address the specific kinds of issues that are out there. With this kind of complexity, you need a single pane of glass of control for what you're doing. We've talked a little bit about this, and you've probably heard this said and written many times, but the biggest challenges around cybersecurity are really related to what it takes for people to know how to do their jobs and to do their jobs and to measure those jobs. That is far more challenging even than just the complexity of the way we're being hacked and the complexity of the infrastructure. Let's pick on Equifax one more time. Last time I'll pick on Equifax today, but as the CEO said, he thought it was one person's responsibility to have patch management done. I'm just guessing this. I haven't read anything about the Equifax patch management program, but I believe that somewhere along the line somebody said that's a dot release, and we're not going to do that release because there's a full version release coming out in 6 months, and that'll have all the dot releases in it, and so we'll be okay. In 6 months, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So there was probably a plan. Somebody knew exactly what they're doing. Somebody had made a decision about that. That wasn't communicated to a lot of people, and the risk certainly wasn't measured or known. Those kinds of things need to be managed better, and they need to be communicated better and more frequently to the right people. Yeah, so the comment was about data loss prevention and defense in depth really needing to be deployed. In this Equifax example we're using, we could make the same analogy with lots of attacks that we're seeing for sure. I'd much rather, I'd like to have my DLP capability in place, but I'd much rather be addressing it before that is the activity at hand. But you gotta have it, because that's just one other indicator inside your plan that something's working or not working. I agree with you. This has been written about a lot. I like to just accentuate the idea as we're dealing with our customers and their moves, their creations of new data center facilities or new colocation facilities, or if they're moving to some version of the cloud. The CISO, the idea of the CISO, or even the service that we provide as a virtual CISO that puts all the controls across the whole enterprise, where does that actually end up reporting? There's a lot of combat going on out there because the CISO, in some cases, is reporting to the board of directors. That's probably the right thing to do. The CIO may not be in that same position, and so you've got these two peers facing off with each other with huge amounts of responsibility of probably equal weight, but being treated differently inside the organization because of the urgency of cybersecurity. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have your CISO talking to your board of directors in some fashion or reporting to them directly. I use this slide when I'm talking to our potential clients just to give them what I think the full picture is on one thing that we haven't mentioned in those kind of catch-alls for cybersecurity is cybersecurity insurance. That's one of the components that we offer as part of our overall capability. Again, it's not the thing that I want to be reliant on. It's not going to make me feel any better about it, but because of the nature of the attacks that are happening and the frequency of them being successful, cybersecurity insurance and having legal services that you can contact are critical aspects of the cybersecurity plan. So we make sure we include that with our customers' programs. Anybody that's been studying for the CISSP recognize this is the highest level of where the controls in cybersecurity start. We protect, we detect, we respond, we recover, and we identify. And then underneath that is where we start to build the controls across the enterprise. And I think that this is important because you will have non-IT people or non-certified CISSP people that will be taking on responsibilities, task responsibilities inside the cybersecurity plan. They need to know where they fit inside this model. They need to know who else is out there doing other things that are related to what they're doing as well. In the world of complexity in a cybersecurity plan, you also have to deal with the complexity of the different catalogs of controls for whatever your client company or our client companies are looking for. And I just put this out there just to show the vastness of that as well. It is equally complex to just getting the organization and plan design in place itself. What tasks, what features of each one of the catalogs of any of these sorts of things do the clients, do the customers, do you all as customers require in order to know that you're doing what you need to be safe and compliant and meet regulatory requirements? It is hard, it is complicated. So having a plan where you can see it all in one place is a helpful way to go. This is really just a slice of the process that we follow at Colotraq when we're talking to clients. We have an online survey on our website that you can fill out 19 questions and you get a report back that just says, in your industry with the number of records that you have, you're at a certain level of risk without having the right cybersecurity plan in place. That risk has a dollar cost value to it, and we present that dollar cost value to the people taking the survey. And we also explain how much of that risk you can mitigate by putting the plan in place. That's just the beginning of the process. That's the box on the far left. And then we step through the implementation of our capability, our virtual CISO service, which actually does the cybersecurity assessment and gives a gap analysis out the other side that says, here's everything that we see in place, here's everything that's working at a certain level on a scale from 1 to 100. here's where the gaps are, and here's what you need to improve even for the things that you do have. And by the way, sometimes we find that you've got 3 things doing the same thing, so you can eliminate 2 of them and lower your overall cost. Question?
So you mentioned that you put a dollar value on risk. Can you talk a little bit about how you derive that dollar value?
Well, we have a calculator. There's a little bit of science behind it. I can. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, excuse me. The dollar cost value that I mentioned, the question in the room is, how do we calculate that, that dollar cost value? We created a calculator based on the PONAM study and work done by Verizon and AT&T and a few other people. We built the calculator that just factors that for you right online. And it's simple. It's pretty basic. It's based on industry and number of records. So pretty simple, but pretty amazing to see. We talked a little bit earlier about the budget conversation inside a company. At a real high level, if you can show people that you've got a $10 million risk that you can reduce by 75% by putting the right plan structure in place, and that plan structure costs a couple $100,000, you're going to put many millions of dollars at less risk. So that's an easier conversation to have with this information. This is a functional model of our virtual CISO service. I believe that there are other things that work like this too. I'd be interested I'm going to go out and talk to the last speaker who is here in this room about exactly this. He may do exactly the same thing here. I'm not sure that there's magic. This is certainly not top secret, but the left side represents the hierarchy of controls, and it gets all the way down to the task level. Those tasks that are assigned to the RACI teams that I mentioned earlier that we develop as part of this, that comes from the org structure of the client that we're working with. So we have the whole org structure captured on the planning platform. We have the whole IT infrastructure captured on that platform as well. And we have the business processes of the client at a high level as well, so that we know what processes are assigned to the control groups that we're building. The single pane of glass in the upper right-hand corner is where you see the dashboard that shows you the roll-up of all of those controls and where you are at any given moment as an overall score for your cybersecurity plan. And then you can drill into that and see the various levels of controls based on whichever components of those models that you see in the middle. So we have a lot of people that don't know anything about their control needs and start with NIST. May just start with the smallest NIST control model, 50 controls, and they can build up from there, and they can customize controls as well. So they can go by the NIST model. They can extend that NIST model up to scale, up to many, many hundreds of controls. They can add ISO controls to it if they're that kind of company, or if they have a division that's that kind of division of a company. They can also add to their control set the controls for HIPAA and PCI and other sorts of things. So that's just a little under the kimono view of the way we do things. Again, not real magic here, just there is automation behind this, and there is a capability that will align the technology you currently have with the controls that you're putting in place for your organization. So you're actually getting alerts and alarms and communications automated through the management of this capability.
It's pretty similar to COVID-5.
Pretty similar to COVID-5. And is that productized? Has anybody monetized that? Yeah, so this is a platform as a service that you can buy. And we also have some larger clients that just asked to buy the platform outright because they had a team of...
I mean, there's no specific to COVID-5, and there are a lot of GRC frameworks which takes care of COVID-5, ISO, NIST, etc.
There are. Yeah, I brought up in the beginning the previous speaker talking about the complexity of the GRC implementation. This is... cybersecurity specific, but it's no less complicated. So these things are not easy. It's typically 4 to 8 weeks for an implementation of the platform, which by its nature of implementation gets you to a cybersecurity assessment and gap analysis right off the bat. But this thing is alive 24/7, 365, looking at those controls, and the controls change. It might be a task in a control that you're looking at it once a week or once a month or once a quarter, and when those things hit, automation kicks in and says, go communicate to the RACI team responsible for that control that there's action that needs to be taken. Again, I promised it was my last time with Equifax, but in the Equifax example, if there was a patch management control that they had in place, many people would have been alerted. And if it failed over a period of time, many people would have been alerted again and again and again. And the CEO would not be reporting that it's one guy's problem.
So where do you have the risk management or risk assessment embedded? Right at the control sets level?
The risk assessment is literally the end of the implementation. So once I've read in the IT inventory, once I've gotten the organizational structure in place and mapped that to the business processes, and then worked with the client to pick the controls that they want, then it's done. And it's a living, breathing activity. So it's on 24/7, 365. It's sold as a annual subscription. And again, just using this as an example, there are other things out there that work like this, but getting this plan in place solves lots of problems, especially for my clients who believe that they've given up this control responsibility because they've outsourced something to the cloud, or because they've moved something to a facility being managed, a managed service facility where a great company said they're going to take care of everything for them. Okay, great, but where is the rest of this activity happening? The rest of the business is running, and these controls are aligned with that and the technologies under the covers. So that's really it for me. Our program is a living program that provides transparency. It provides a simple view. It's a complex environment, but it's a simple view, and it's a simple way of setting up that view of what's going on in the cybersecurity space for your organization. If anybody has any questions about that after this meeting, be sure and come and talk to me. We're not here presenting as a vendor, so and we didn't intend to, right? This is we're kind of this broker in the data center and cloud services space. That's where we live. That's where we're going to stay. That's who we're helping right now. But the challenge that we're solving really is something that applies to everybody equally. Yes, sir.
One question, how do you include privacy? Because GDPR coming in next year, that's going to be a huge challenge.
Yeah, GDPR will be another set of controls that are added to the control catalog in our model. Okay. So we already have that mapped out. We know exactly where we're going to go with that. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.